If you've been stuck as an architect or engineer for over 25 months and you've been doing the same thing every single day, wondering if you'll ever break into a management position, this video will show you the exact blueprint that I used in order to become a BIM coordinator in under 12 months and the exact strategy that all my clients are doing to achieve the same result. And so what I want to do is reveal to you the exact blueprint that converts architects and engineers into BIM managers. And just so you know, let me change the camera here. Just so you know, my vision with this video, right, is to provide you with the best education you can possibly get so that you can take advantage of this unique shift in the market over the next 5 years before it's too late, right? And the reason my videos are long is because every video I've seen on YouTube is so surface level and never gives you the clarity you need with BIM. And so my vision is to provide you the clarity with BIM, and at any point in the whole video, if you think, okay, this actually makes sense, I actually want to do this, and this makes so much logical sense to me, the path that's laid out, I want you to take action straight away and actually start to implement this path and actually start to do it as soon as possible, because that is what actually leads to transformation, okay? And so my commitment is to bring to you the best path, the most logically thought out path that I could possibly ever come up with. And it needs to make so much sense to you that you're going to think by the end of this video, okay, this makes so much logical sense. I understand exactly why I've been stuck. I understand exactly why there's a trap and I actually won't be able to grow unless I make this one simple change. And I also know the exact path that I need to take now over the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months in order for me to actually get to the outcome that I want to get to, right? And so here's some examples of what's happened to people like you who watch my YouTube videos, right? Arushi became a BIM coordinator in London with 0 experience, right? Diego got made redundant and became a BIM coordinator in Australia within 30 days. So he actually got made redundant as a structural engineer, structural drafter, and then he started working with me within 30 days. We positioned him as a unique individual in the market. We added the BIM coordination, BIM management skill set. He actually got a job as an AI and BIM manager in a better company. So he pretty much upskilled himself and moved into a better position, and he grew in his career, even though he had an unfortunate situation where he got redundant. And it happened really quickly, and that goes to show when you have this skill set, you actually can't lose because you naturally will grow no matter what, against your will, right? Ty went from landscape architecture to BIM coordination in London really quickly, right? And all these people watched my videos, they understood the unique opportunity in the market, and once they were convinced, they started to learn BIM coordination and management. And if there's anything that you ever take from this whole video is once you logically understand the whole process, because it's going to be so logical for you to understand here, I want you to then take action straight away in order to actually implement this stuff, because that's when you actually start to change, right? And just a bonus for you, if you're watching, if you're on my 3-phase BIM blueprint or roadmap that I've developed to help every single one of these people become BIM coordinators, then message me the word PDF, just a single word. Don't add anything else to the message, just the word PDF on Instagram. You should follow me. There's a link down below for my Instagram. Message me the word PDF, DM me, and I'll send it to you, right? It's just it's a table. It's a Google Doc that has a table of everything that I run through with all my clients, all the skills that they learn, all the modules that they learn. And I'm willing to do that if you actually are serious about growing in your career and you actually want to learn this stuff. Message me and I'll send you that process across so you can then start to learn it yourself and tick off everything, right? So it's a checklist with every single skill you need to learn to be able to become a BIM manager and position yourself as an expert when you're applying to jobs. So who am I and why did I even help those people that I talked about above, right? Like, why did I even help these people and why did this strategy even work for them? Because it worked for me and then I started helping other people and it worked for them as well, right? So I became a BIM coordinator within a year of working full-time in the industry, and these are the types of projects I was able to coordinate. So straight away, within a year of working full-time in the industry, I was able to coordinate a lot of commercial style projects. So like luxury apartment complexes like this in Australia, where pretty much the cars go inside the building. There's like a lift and then it goes all the way to the top floor. That's like a project called Newground that I was able to coordinate. Also like hospital projects, like expansions of hospitals like this, where you have the BIM model. I'm doing all the MEP services coordination with architecture, structure, the penetration coordination, plan room coordination, like all of that stuff to make sure that it looks perfect in the BIM model as a simulation before we actually go on site and we actually start to install these things, or we don't have any issues. So hospitals, I've done a lot of hospitals. This is also another hospital in Melbourne where I actually had to go on site because this was like a renovation project from like the 1950s, 1960s is when they initially built this, where we didn't have the BIM model. So we had a lot of 2D drawings, and we didn't even have a lot of 2D drawings. We had a lot of scans, and we had to go on site and do markups and stuff like that. So whether it's 3D, whether it's 2D, whether it's with scans and with all this stuff, I've had to come up with ways in order to coordinate really large hospitals, prisons, aged cares, luxury apartments like this, all with the 3D models in order to make sure everything comes together, right? And so this practical knowledge is what I actually teach every single one of my clients. And that's why they're able to actually make this transformation really quickly. And it's what I'm about to lay out in this video as well. So there's a whole workflow from start to finish, from not knowing anything about BIM to understanding everything about BIM. And it has to be a practical methodology, because you can't just learn theory and get to the outcome, because if you could, then you'd be able to do some courses on Udemy or even do a BIM Masters and get to the outcome. But unfortunately, even if you do a BIM Masters, you still can't become a BIM manager, BIM coordinator. It's just honestly a waste of time because you're not learning anything practical, right? So why did I know that I needed to do this? When I was a BIM modeler, I felt like work was repetitive and boring. I felt mentally drained after a day of work. I started to lose the passion I had for my career, and I couldn't envision myself going down that path for the next decade. I felt stuck. I felt like I was wasting my potential, and I was scared of getting too comfortable, right? And I went on a quest to solve this problem of career stagnation. When I was going on this quest, I saw people 10 years ahead of me doing the same thing that I was doing. I didn't feel like that version of reality was something that I wanted to go down. So I spent all my time learning and educating myself I didn't spend all my time learning and educating myself to just get stuck with no learning opportunity in a job like most people, right? And here's what I figured out early on. I knew that if I went down the traditional path, I would get traditional results. And that was something that was unquestionable in my mind. Okay, if I go down the path that everyone else is trying to go down, everyone else is trying to tell me to go down, and I expect different results, then I'm literally insane, because you can't go down the same path, follow the exact same routine, which is very logical. It's causes and effects, cause and effect, right? If you have the same causes, you get the same effect. So if you go down the same path, how do you get a different result compared to everyone else? So I needed a specific path, something that gives me an edge, something that allows me to grow quicker, something that's not going to get me stuck for 5, 6, 7, 10 years, like I see a lot of these people getting stuck in their careers, right? And so I realized most people are trying to grow faster in their career using the slow lane opportunity. And so that's what I figured out. It's like trying to row harder in a boat, but there's a speedboat rowing laps around you, right? There's a speedboat running laps around you, but you're over here in this boat and you're trying to row harder and harder going down the traditional path, but you're bottlenecked. You're bottlenecked by the opportunity. Like if someone installed a motor to the back of your boat, all of a sudden you fly past everyone else. But since you're in a manual boat and you think you're working as hard as possible, it's not actually your fault. It's just the opportunity you're in is really wrong, and it's not conducive to career growth. Right? There's nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with you or the boat. It's just that you're not seeing reality correctly. The only thing that is wrong is if you expect to get results and growth and speed of someone that is in a speedboat or a yacht, but you're just going down the traditional path in your manual boat, then that's where the problem is, right? It's not wrong to be on this boat. It's not wrong to be on this boat. The reality is, if you're in a situation that is conducive towards career growth, you're going to grow quicker. If you're in a situation that you learn less in your job and you do the same thing and it's monotonous and you repeat that every single day, you learn less. And so there's no right or wrong. Some people are really happy with where they're at. But if you do the situation where you're in a manual, laborious boat where you have to do the same thing over and over and you're not learning, but then you expect to get the result of getting to project management, starting your own company later on. You want to get into BIM management, you want to work remotely, and you have all these aspirations, and it's really hard to go from one to another, but you're just not seeing the reality of your situation correctly, right? And that's the only thing you got to fix in order to actually achieve the result. Is seeing reality is one thing, and then the path is really simple after that, right? I realized that people want to grow into management positions, project management positions, start their own company later, because that's most of the people that I work with. They want to get into project management positions. They either want to start their own company or they want to just get into a general management position, and they're using BIM coordination as sort of like a stepping stone in order to get to that pathway. Or even if you just wanted to have a nice life where you feel like you're impacting what you do on a day-to-day basis and you're also working remotely and working virtually, that's a really, really good path that you can go down, right? But the reason that they get stuck for 10 years, even though they have this goal, and they get stuck and they're in their early 20s and 30s, which is the prime of your life when you should actually be peaking in your career and doing a management job, I realize these people are only getting stuck because they're expecting different results doing the same thing over and over again, which they haven't realized. They just have to abandon the boat and get into a better one, right? And so I rejected the idea of going down the modeling path for years and years in order to fully be immersed with the industry and how the coordination process happens. I wanted to find an opportunity that allowed me to align my interests, my passion, my desires with the building industry and feel like I'm providing value from day one. I didn't want to feel like, okay, I'm a manager when I'm 45, 50 years old and start to feel really happy, start to make more money, start to grow in my career when I'm 45, 50, right? Because like, what's the point, right? You want to be able to feel like you learned this hard going to university, learning, you're passionate, you feel like you have the energy to do all this stuff. You should be able to do this stuff now. Why is it that you have to wait until you're 45, 50 in order to do this stuff when you should? It's, you feel like you can do it. It's just a matter of you learning the skills. If you actually knew how to do it, you would be able to do it. It's not about age, it's about experience. But when you say experience, it's about skills, because experience gives you skills, right? And so there's one person that can say it's about experience and then say stuck for 25 years, but then they realize, even though I have experience, I don't actually have the skill set. But then there's one guy that can be like, okay, I'm gonna learn the skill set, and they learn the skill set, but they might have less experience, but they might be able to provide more value just because their skill set is higher. So in that case, all of a sudden experience goes out the window because you have a better skill set. And this is why younger people can grow quicker and older people can grow slower, right? Because it's not necessarily about experience. That's more of it's a fallacy. It's more about skill, right? I saw a unique opportunity in the market that would allow me to grow in my career 10 times faster than everyone else, and I took it. And that's the building information modeling market, and it's going to be doubling in the next 5 years, and it's going to continue growing quicker and quicker after that as well. So if you want to take advantage of this, it's a really, really good time for you to get on this early as an architect, as an engineer, because you have the perfect background to be able to get into this BIM industry now, so that you can then dominate the market and grow in your career later on, right? The BIM industry will double in the next 5 years, and Charles Darwin said, "It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor is it the most intelligent that survives. It's actually the one that's the most adaptable to change." And now with AI coming out, the technology boom, the BIM boom, right? AI is integrating with the construction processes and with technology. Technology is coming into the construction industry, and it's changing how everything happens. If you're not immersing yourself with coordination and the skill set and the tool set, and you're not on top of that, you're going to be similar to the person that only knows AutoCAD right now and is getting paid a very, very minimum amount of money because they don't have the skill set in order to provide value to the companies, right? Think about the people that are really old school and that weren't adaptable to change. Those people really struggle now with their careers, and they got capped at a specific level. The person that is adaptable to change and implementing all these and trying to find new avenues and grow into different parts in their career and understand that it's adaptability, it's AI, right? It's all these new things that are coming, which I have to adapt to. That's what's actually going to allow me to grow in my career. And so that's why it's so important to be on the cutting edge of technology and understand this whole process and be in a role that allows you to explore this stuff and also manage this stuff, right? So if you can explore this stuff and you can learn this stuff, be an innovator, and you can also manage people underneath you because you have the communications skill set, you can never have a problem with being replaced in your career at all, because you can communicate and you can teach people things, you can also innovate and you can bring value to the company, right? So those are like the two skills that you need to develop. And I'll get into this later on, but essentially, this is the reason I switched over to BIM coordination, BIM management, which gave me the opportunity to learn about the construction. It gave me the opportunity to learn about how the construction process works. And I felt more aligned in my career, and it actually gave me the opportunity to teach other people how to do the exact same thing as me. When you're doing drafting, when you're doing architecture, you're not involved with the construction process. So you don't really understand much about the MEP services, the way the timelines work in the general contracting companies, what has to happen at what specific time, how do I manage this person, how do I manage expectations. None of this skill set gets developed because you're not put in an opportunity to develop that skill set in the first place. And so when I became a BIM coordinator, all of a sudden I was joining BIM coordination meetings, I was running the meetings, I was running clash detection, I was exploring the model, I was looking at all these different MEP services, I was seeing thousands of different examples of how it coordinates with architecture, with structure, instances where the ceiling has to drop, instances where the ceiling has to get raised, instances where we have to do a specific design for the mechanical services and make it really unique and find a really unique solution for that specific situation, right? When you start to see all these different examples, you start to gain so much confidence because your exposure to the industry, to the whole construction process is so high. And that's what allows you to grow and get the technical skills as a really good foundation, right? So now my vision is either getting into project management, starting my own consultancy, or even just continuing with the training company and growing this to help other people, right? Because I like helping other people achieve this exact same result, growing, staying on top of the coordination, the tool set and the BIM management tool set, and teaching that to other people. So all this has been able to do, me getting into coordination and switching into that path, all it's been able to do is just unlock my potential and give me the opportunity to pivot into things that I genuinely want to do with my life and my career, rather than feeling like a slave to money and my degree. If I felt like I had to go and I had to do a specific job every single day and there was no opportunity for me to learn, grow, right, innovate, lead, manage, then I would really, really hate going to work every single day. And this is why I call it the architectural and drafting death trap, because you start to feel dead inside when you do this over and over and over and over again. And so when you get into a position where you're coordinating, managing, that's when you start to feel real passion for your career, right? So this path is for you that I'm about to reveal to you, right? I'm about to reveal this special path for you that I've been able to follow and all my clients have been able to follow. And it's for you. If you hate mundane and repetitive work, right? If you hate feeling stagnant and you have a drive to grow, work is draining you at the end of the day right now, and you're losing passion for your career because of your current job. And you have no balance in your life because your job is taking advantage of you. They're asking you to work all of these hours and you're working overtime, you're working extra, you're working weekends, but you feel like you're not compensated for the amount you're working, right? Or at least some sort of recognition. And so if you value feeling aligned with work, feeling freedom and flexibility, working virtually, having a balance, continuous growth without burnout, and being exposed to the whole construction industry and being the go-to expert when it comes to specific matters, then this is going to be the perfect path for you to take, because it's very practical and it will actually allow you, if you're the type of person that gets fulfillment from these things and right now you're feeling these things, this is 100% going to be the best path for you to take, right? And so before I sort of explain to you like the path, right? You need to understand fundamentally why the traditional approach doesn't work and why a lot of people try to do it and it doesn't really work. And I like to make things so logical that it's impossible to fail, right? If you work with me one-on-one, like a lot of my clients tell me that it is the way that the program is laid out and the way that I teach, right, in order to get from their current situation into BIM coordination management is such a logical path that it is so unreasonable to fail, because it makes so much sense. And so you stick to the path and you actually get there. And so that's what I want to do in this video is I want to give you a taste of the understanding of fundamentally why the traditional approach doesn't work. And I want to make it so logical to you that it makes so much sense that you can actually go and even do this yourself, right? And that's my goal. If I can motivate you to take action and actually do this, that's going to be the best thing that I can possibly do. And so let's make this really logical for you to understand. And we're going to start from a vision where you want to get, let's start from like a vision where you want to get into your career, and then let's work backwards so you can understand the skills which you need to achieve your goal, okay? We're going to talk about where you want to get to, then we're going to work backwards, and then we're going to create sort of like a template or like a roadmap for you to ultimately get to that vision. It's going to make so much sense, right? Once you define your goal, the next logical thing to ask yourself is, in order for me to get into that goal, what skills do I need? Right? So what's your goal? A lot of people that work with me, right? And this is probably you as well. They want to get into either management positions, they want to become a project manager, right? Or they want to start their own company. So they're project managers usually immersed with the whole construction process. Management positions, you feel like you're managing people, and so you feel really good about, and you feel like the weight of responsibility and you really want to take that responsibility on, right? And starting your own company, a lot of people have that motivation because they've always had a dream since they were young to have something of their own and make a name for themselves, right? And so most people that want to get into these three goals try get through the BIM coordination path because it allows you to develop the skills so rapidly, okay? So let's define those three goals as your North Star. This is where you want to get to. Now, ask yourself, in order for me to get into management, project management, or start my own firm, what legitimately are the skills that I need which would allow me to create this effect? And so so it's like cause and effect, right? What is the effect? The effect is project management, management positions, and starting your own company. there's a cause which is going to allow you to get into that effect, right? So there's a cause and it's going to produce you an effect. And so that's what we want to get to, okay? So the reason I say effect is because it's very simple. It's just what causes will create the effect. In other words, what skills do you need to create this effect, right? So management, project management, and starting your own company, you need to learn how to communicate with multiple stakeholders on the project, right? That seems like a really good skill to have. If you can understand how to communicate with different types of people, you're surely going to be able to get into management and excel as a manager, whether that be project management or just like general drafting management or something like that. If you can learn the skill of communication really well in different scenarios, that's going to be really good, right? The next thing, you need to have a really good understanding about the whole construction process. Because in order for you to manage a project, or in order for you to manage different people underneath you as maybe BIM modelers or BIM coordinators, if you're a BIM manager, you need to actually have a very good technical understanding of the construction process. So when they come to you and tell you, hey, we have this, I need to submit these drawings, and do I submit this drawing A or drawing B? Then you're going to have to understand, because you have the construction knowledge, okay, we're pouring the slab, therefore the penetration drawings are more important than getting the ductwork drawings out or the shop drawings out, right? So since you know the whole process of the construction industry and you know how things work and how a building is actually built because you've been exposed to it so many times, you actually know how to prioritize things, which makes you an effective manager because you actually have the know-how, you have the wisdom, right? So first thing, communication. Second thing is understanding the construction process. So you have a really good technical and practical background. The third thing is you need to be very technically skilled in your ability to do problem solving, right? So all the time there's going to be brand new situations that come up, and your job as a manager is to problem solve, right? Innovate and problem solve. If you can innovate and problem solve, you can be a really good manager. And so when people come to you with problems, you have to be able to always think innovatively and come up with solutions. And it's sometimes even things that they would be able to do themselves, but they come to you as a manager in order for you to be able to like tell them, okay, this is how I see the problem, this is how I see the solution, why don't you try this? And then they're going to be able to like understand how to do that, right? And so it's really simple. If you can communicate with people, you have the technical knowledge, and you can actually solve problems no matter what problem comes to you, isn't that fundamentally what you need? You can solve any problem, you can communicate with anyone, and you actually know everything, right? You'll be able to become a manager. It's so simple. And if people actually know that you have those skills and there's evidence for those skills, you become a manager, right? So hopefully that makes so much sense, those three skills, because I've thought about this so much that it's so obvious that these are legitimately the three skills that you need, right? Okay, so what we've done is we've gone one step deeper from our goals, and we understand that skills are what we need, okay? And now there's one more question that we have to ask ourselves. What is the day-to-day basis gonna align with developing these skills, okay? What do I need to be doing on a day-to-day basis to be, because you don't think of the goal. You don't think of like, okay, I want to start my own company. How do I do that on a day-to-day basis? No, you think of goal, then you think of skill, then you think of day-to-day actions. So now, since we have broken down the skill, we forget about like the goal where you want to get to. Forget about you want to start a company. You know this is what you want to get to. Let's go one step deeper, okay? How do we get to this? That means what we do on a day-to-day basis has to either increase your capacity to communicate, increase your capacity to understand the construction process, or increase your capacity to problem solve. Because these are not just binaries, right? You don't just wake up one day in the morning on a Thursday afternoon and think, I now know how to communicate, I now know how to problem solve, I now know how to do the whole construction process, and I'm really knowledgeable. Like, it doesn't happen. It happens over time with exposure in your current job. That's what you're thinking, right? And so because you're thinking that, that's the truth. You need to be exposed to a situation or an environment. It's all about the environment you're in. You need to be exposed to an environment on a day-to-day basis that genuinely develops these three skills. If currently your environment is not developing these three skills, you are in trouble because you know you are not heading towards the goal you want to, right? And so you, like, if you go to work every single day and you're not developing one of these three skills and you're not putting in the position to develop these three skills, you're legitimately wasting your time. Because there is no way, right? It's sort of the block. Right now, the block is that you're not even given the opportunity to learn the skills in order for you to get to your ultimate goal, right? And so the reason I say, okay, so here's the fundamental problem. what you do on a day-to-day basis as an architect or engineer has to align, right, with the skills you want to develop. And as a architect, as an engineer, as a draftsperson, as a BIM modeler, like these roles that I'm talking about, you're mostly doing schedules and drafting. You're not exposed to the whole construction process as much as you'd like to be, and you never get to lead meetings or take charge in order to solve problems that arise in a specific project. You usually get told what to do. Like you're told, okay, model this, draft this, create this schedule, write that report. So you can see that you never develop, you're never thrown into a situation where you have to like think about something critically, understand the different services and come up with a solution. You're never thrown into a situation where you actually get to learn something new about the construction industry and how the process of the building is built every single day, because you're always in like the architecture pigeonhole or the drafting pigeonhole, whichever company you work for, right? Whether you're a structural drafter, fire drafter, or whatever. The third thing is like you're mostly doing drafting and schedules, right? So you never even get to speak to other people and develop the skill set of communication. So you can see here that legitimately most of what you do on a day-to-day basis as an architect or an engineer is the opposite, right? It's preventing you from developing the skills, which is preventing you from getting to your goal, right? So if you define your goal like this and then you break it down as skills and then you look at your current situation, which is you don't get to do any of those things, well then it's very obvious why you get stuck in the trap for a very, very long time. Because each day you go to work, you expect to be learning these skills and you know you gotta learn these skills in order to get to the next stage. But you're never put in a position to even learn those skills. Because this is not like you learn these skills or you don't learn these skills. This is am I in an environment that allows me to learn these skills, right? You can't just teach someone the construction process in one day. You have to be put in an environment where you sort of figure it out or you sort of get taught really, really well, right? And so you can see that the problem is not with your current skill set, because the skill set is not hard to develop. The problem is with your current opportunity. Like your opportunity is stifling you, it's preventing you, it's capping you from actually even being put in an environment. Environment is so important so that you can actually learn those skills. So do you see that what you do on a day-to-day basis as a BIM modeler or an architect is legitimately the opposite of what you need to be doing in order for you to create the effect of your dream life, your vision, your goal with your career? And this is why I call this the drafting and architectural trap, right? It's sort of the place that if you do not actively do something about your situation, you'll be stuck in this forever because it's not a naturally growth-oriented role, right? There's two types of roles. There's naturally growth-oriented roles and there's non-growth-oriented roles. And the way we define that is by looking at which of these roles actually gets you the skills which allows you to grow to the ultimate goal, right? So naturally growth-oriented roles are roles where you have to problem solve on a day-to-day basis. You have to lead meetings on a day-to-day basis. You actually have to learn how to communicate on a day-to-day basis. You have to learn the construction process and you get paid to do these things, right? If you get paid on a day-to-day basis to actually learn these skills because you're put in those situations, you naturally grow in your career while you're getting paid. And this is why some people grow really quickly. But if you're not even put in a single situation where you can learn these three things, how do you expect to grow? Because you're in a naturally non-growth oriented role. That's why it's called the trap, right? Okay. Let me ask you a question, okay? How can you expect to achieve the goal that you want in your career if you legitimately don't even do the required input in order to gain the skills that you need in your job? And that's the exact right. Wouldn't that be the exact same as the homeless person wishing that they would become a millionaire and having that strong goal and determination, and it's really obvious that all he does is beg the whole day. He does nothing, right? He's a homeless person, and he wants to become a millionaire. He has the same ambition, but just the day-to-day conducive environment, which is he's on the street, is not allowing him to become a millionaire. If his environment was different, if he was at least going to work, he would be on the path to becoming a millionaire, because you can then earn money, right? And then you can figure it out after that, because you're in a situation where you can then ask, okay, how do I provide more value to this company? You can talk about it. So the environment is everything. If you put yourself in an environment where you can't even provide value to anyone as a homeless person, then how do you expect to become a millionaire? But as soon as you put yourself into an environment, even if it's a really like entry-level position, it's something that you can get, right? Then you're at least in an environment where you can start to think about, okay, how do I provide more value? How do I stack skills? How do I develop myself? And so fundamentally, the reason I said that example, right, is just I just want you to understand one thing from this whole section of me speaking. And you might have felt like I said the same thing over and over again, but it's so fundamental that what I want you to understand is because this is majority of the reason that people get stuck. So you need to see this in this way. Otherwise, if you don't see it in this way, you will naturally be stuck, right, in the next few years. Your current role as an architect, BIM modeler, or engineer is actually not giving you a single opportunity to develop the skills you need in order for you to hit the goal you said you want. And so if you define that as a goal you want, right, if you want these three things, if you want a management, project management, starting your own company, the path you're on right now is 100% guaranteed, right? There's no guarantees in life. You can't say that if you learn the skills, you're going to actually be able to start your own company, become a project manager, or become a manager in the future. But there is actually one guarantee in life, is that if you do the same thing, you will get the same result. So if you don't do anything about your situation right now, you actually won't be able to get into the goal you want. That is the only guarantee that you have, right? But there's no even guarantee of you getting here, right? There's only probability, right? There's a high probability, which I'll explain later on, but there's no guarantee. And this is why you feel like you'll never be able to get there. And this is why you feel stuck and why you feel like you have no path to follow. You legitimately cannot create a connection between what you do, where you are right now, and what you do on a day-to-day basis, because you know intuitively that what you do is not leading you to develop the skills that we talked about above. And this is why you feel all this dissonance. This is why you feel stuck. This is why you feel trapped. This is why you feel like you have more to life and you have this vision and you actually want to get there, but you can't get there. And you feel like, why is that? What is that feeling? It's this feeling over here. This is the logical explanation for what you feel. And if you feel like this is very common because everyone that I've worked with has felt this, right? So that's all I want you to understand, right? Imagine being 35 to 40, still doing the same drafting work, watching younger people who've worked smart get promoted past you. And it's not because they've worked harder than you, it's just because they've worked smart. It's like the person that's on the rowboat, rowing the boat, and the person that's on the yacht, right, that has the motor. They both spend time on the boat. They spend 8 hours a day on the boat. But one guy just has a better opportunity vehicle, which means the 8 hours is more effective 8 hours, whereas the other guy is just like doing the same thing over and over again. So the 8 hours is not as effective, right? That's where the concept of leverage comes into play, right? If you have a lot of leverage in your career, you can start to make a lot of money, you can start to work less, you can start to get a lot of these things that a lot of people don't have, like working virtually, feeling like you're passionate towards your job, all these different things, they start to come naturally in your career if you actually have leverage. But to develop leverage is something that you have to do. You have to take the path because it doesn't naturally happen, right? Every day you're not on the right path, you're actually falling behind because you're working 8 hours, not doing something smart. Someone else is working really smart, working 8 hours a day. It's not even that they're intentionally doing something smart. It's that they've put themselves in an environment that allows them to pretty much learn 4 times of what you learn on a day-to-day basis. So that compounds over a year. That's like, you can do 10 years of industry. You can learn 10 years of knowledge in 1 year of working, right? Whereas someone that's worked for 10 years might not have that same knowledge. And that's why a lot of people that work with me have been stuck for 7, 8, 9, 10 years as in this trap, but they still feel like they don't know much. And then they have to learn from, and then they learn from me, right? Is because they feel like they're stuck. They feel like they're in a trap because they don't actually legitimately have the knowledge. And so the logic behind my blueprint and strategy is what I want to explain to you now. Because now you understand fundamentally the reason for career stagnation and why you're stuck. Now I want to explain to you the logic behind the blueprint of like why my thing works so well. Let's compare this to BIM coordination and why I see coordination and management so different compared to the modeling and architectural design path, right? When you do BIM coordination, here are the things which you typically do on a day-to-day basis. Number one is you're leading coordination meetings between MEP engineers, the architects, the consultants, and the contractors. So what naturally happens here? Like visualize this, right? Like think this, right? Tomorrow morning, you go to work, you're working as a BIM coordinator, and your first job is you show up to the meeting, and it's your job to lead the coordination meeting between the MEP engineers, the architects, the consultants, the contractors, communicate effectively, and lead the model to become clash-free, okay? That's your responsibility. Now, how do you do that, right? When you're thinking about and when you're doing this action, these are the things you develop. You develop your ability to communicate with every single type of person and lead a conversation so you can drive an outcome, right? You develop your ability to resolve issues quickly, as you will have to help two parties resolve a clash, and you will have to facilitate that problem-solving process. You will be exposed to so many different examples of clashes, problems, and solutions, so you'll be immersed in the whole construction process. And this is when you start to develop your multidisciplinary skill set, which will allow you to become really technically proficient, like that overall BIM manager that you really need to become, right? Because you get immersed into the whole construction process. So you're seeing all these examples of these clashes as you're doing your research before the meeting. You're developing your ability to resolve issues quickly, because people ask you in the coordination meeting, okay, what are we going to do about this problem over here? And you're also talking with multiple people, and you're facilitating a conversation for it to happen. And you're sort of an expert when it comes to resolving clashes and the services and all of that, right? So you're communicating, you're learning, and you're immersing yourself, right? So that's a very, very good place to be in. And that's what I call a naturally growth-oriented role. You're no longer in the boat, you're in the speedboat, right? Number 2, you're developing BIM coordination and management workflows for the company you work at. This means that you're on the cutting edge of technology, and you learn the new skills and stay up to date with them, so you're always in high demand, right? Because that is your job as a BIM manager. That is your job as a BIM coordinator. You have to find new strategies, new integrations, new AI tools like Navisworks ACC, the integration, Celebri ACC, the integration, how we can use different AI tools, right, in order to integrate with ACC or with Navisworks in order to make things a little bit more efficient. That is your job, to learn, to actually research and implement those things. So you're like an innovator. If you're paid to be an innovator, right, as you're a communicator, you're a problem solver, you're technically proficient, you're getting immersed, you're also an innovator. And so as you're innovating, you're also coming up with perfect reasons why you should be promoted. Because as you're innovating, you're providing more value to the company, which means you're now more valuable, which means that now you can naturally grow, ask for raises, ask for promotions, right? It's very, very simple. And so it's because the role is growth oriented, so you're getting paid to do this thing, right? This means you're on the cutting edge of technology, I already said that. And if you can find better systems and processes and workflows for the company you work for, you can easily justify how much money you save the company and ask for raises and bonuses, right? Let me give you an example. When I started working at my company first, we used to do clash coordination with this program called Autodesk Construction Cloud, ACC, right? When I started working, I implemented Navisworks, right? And I combined this with ACC, right? And so like, it's complicated, but just think about this as one coordination program. This is a secondary coordination program. And what I did was I combined the best and the sort of advantages of both these in order to automate the whole clash detection process. And that actually saved 10 to 15 hours of clash detection every single week. So what did that mean? That mean I could take on more projects and do clash detection because I've automated the process. But imagine I was working with like 10 or 15 different BIM coordinators underneath me. What's 10 hours multiplied by 10 people? 100 hours, okay? So you're saving the company 100 hours. Oh, you can't see that, okay? 10 times 10 equals 100. So now you're saving the company 100 hours of labor. Okay, so whatever the company charges out the labor for, like 100 multiplied by, let's just say it's $100 an hour, right? Equals 1,000. Where is that? 10,000. So you're saving the company $10,000 every single week. You multiply that by 52. How much are you saving the company? Like 52,000? No. 520,000. So you're saving the company like, my math might be wrong, but like you get the point. Like you're saving the company $500,000 every single year, right? And so yeah, it is. So if you're saving the company $500,000 every single year, why don't you go and ask the company for 100K as a raise? Okay, it makes sense because you can explain this to your boss very logically because you've been able to do this, which has been able to. This is if you're working at a big company where you're managing like 10, 15 people, you implemented a brand new system which saved this much labor. This is how much it costs. It's quantifiable. If you bring the company $500,000 more every single year because of this, or you save the company $500,000 more and it's showing in their profitability at the end of the year, why can't you get paid 100K more just because you implemented that into the company? Because the company is still profiting, but you're getting paid more, right? And so that's the type of thing that you can get to when your job, your literal job is to be able to find is to be an innovator, is to find solutions because you can justify the value you're providing to the company. Whereas right now, as an architect, as an engineer, as a BIM modeler, you can't really justify the value you're increasing because you can only work so productively, right? Because you don't have leverage. In the other example, I had my own leverage, whereas I had like 10 people that, if I was managing 10 people, there's 10 people that I can impact their productivity, right? And so that's how leverage multiple. That's why managers get paid so much, is because they're using such high leverage and they're critical thinkers, right? So do you see the two main actions that BIM coordination takes on a day-to-day basis always leads to development of communication skills, because you're dealing with so many different stakeholders. But more importantly, it leads for you to be immersed in the whole entire construction process and seeing so many examples over and over again that you become very confident with the whole construction process and your ability to solve problems, which gives you the confidence you need in order to manage any team later, because you are so technically proficient and confident in your ability to communicate, right? So this is why I say the best way to grow to get into a management position is through the BIM coordination route. Because the BIM coordination route, it's the job where you get paid to learn and it's the job where you get paid to now get to your goal, right? You're getting paid to learn the skills to get to your goal. Because if we define our goal as what we talked about at the start of the video, and then we go one step deeper as the skills. Now, any job that lets you learn those skills, actually, that means that the job is paying you to get to your goal, right? So a job can either pay you to get to your goal, or a job can pay you to not get to your goal and just like stay stuck where you are. So as a BIM modeler, you're not getting paid to get to your goal, you're getting paid to be stuck where you are. But as a BIM coordinator, now you're getting paid. As a BIM manager, now you're getting paid to get to your goal, right? You're not getting paid to get stuck, you're getting paid to get to your goal. And so it's sort of like the positive momentum loop that you can get into in your career when you get into this path, right? I'll give you another example of a very simple thing that I did the other day, which will give you another idea about what I mean when I say you get paid to learn and get better, right? This is honestly a very simple example, but I'll actually just demonstrate the point because it's what my day-to-day looks like. So this is like an example of a project that I'm coordinating. You can see here, if I annotate, there is over here, this is student accommodation. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, there's like 5. And these are typical student accommodations because this is identical to this one, it's identical to this one, it's identical to this one and this one, right? And so before I do a clash detection process as a BIM manager, like a BIM manager's job, if you were a BIM manager, this is what you would do. You would tell the BIM coordinator, okay, before you actually go and run the clash detection process on every one of these services, because you can go and run the coordination process between the MEPF services, between architectural and structural, right? You can do that now, but I actually don't recommend for you to do that now, because what I want you to do, and this is what the BIM manager is going to tell the BIM coordinator, is I want you to just do this apartment building over here as like a test. So this is going to be like a test modeling coordination process, right? It might take you like 30 minutes to do that apartment building as sort of like a test where you come up with all these different clashes. So you generate like a clash issue management thing and like a clash report, and you send it to all like the MEP guys over here, right? And what they do is they resolve all the clashes inside this test apartment. And once they resolve all those clashes, you then tell them, can you replicate the exact same layout to all the other apartments? Because they're typical, they're identical. When I say typical, I mean they're the same, they're identical, right? And so what they do is all you did was you coordinated one section of it, but you had the knowledge, right, that they were all typical apartments. This is the same as this, which is the same as this, is the same as this. And so you got every single one of these people to go and resolve one apartment and duplicate their models to this, 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 and this. And so what they ended up doing was you saved yourself 30 minutes of coordination per apartment, and you saved every single one of these subcontractors over here probably like an hour of modeling, because they don't have to go and adjust every single apartment, right? So probably like an hour of modeling each. So you have like 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. So you save the mechanical guy 4 hours of work. You save the electrical guy 4 hours of work, right? You get the idea. And so now, if you do something like this and you have like all these mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire guys in your current company, right? Just say you're working for a BIM consultancy, you actually save the company so much time. And so I did a similar situation where we coordinated one apartment building over here as a test building. We used that as like a typical layout. Everyone copied the exact same things for everything else. And this actually reduced the amount of manual labor, like the amount of drafting that people were doing. As a BIM coordinator, you can reduce the amount of like work that other people are doing because you have that impact if you actually think about it. But just like a regular BIM coordinator might just like do clashes for the whole building. And now you have to do more work and everyone has to do more work, right? So if you're smart about this whole process as a BIM coordinator, you think in a very innovative manner and you're a problem solver, you can think about things like this to make your job easier, right? Why wouldn't you want to make your job easier? And so you get the opportunity to do things like that, right? Another thing that you can do is you have like a situation like this, right? Where this is sort of like this is a bed, this is a student accommodation, so this is like a place you can study, this is like a bathroom over here, you have like the hydraulics pipes over here, and you have like a mechanical fan over here, which is like for the toilet exhaust, right? You have a mechanical fan over here and you have hydraulics pipes over here. What you want to do is every single one of these apartments actually has that toilet. You have a toilet there, you have a toilet there, you have a toilet there, because you know, every single apartment is gonna need hydraulics pipes for the shower in the level above, and it's also going to need like the fans. You can see like the fans in each one of those little apartment complexes there, right? And so a very common thing that happens is there's clashes between like hydraulics and mechanical, because you have the fan over here, which is typically right clashing with the hydraulics pipes. Right now it's not, because you can see the hydraulics pipe is like on one side of the building and then the fan is like down below here, right? Fan is down below here, the hydraulics is like on the side, it's like taking that route. And so initially there were every single one of these apartments, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there was like clashes between the hydraulics and the mechanical services here. So what I did was we came up with a typical toilet coordination for one apartment, right? And so we sat in the coordination meeting and I asked the question, okay, mechanical guys, where do you want to have your fan? Okay, and they said, okay, there's a door. As we enter from into this door, we want to make sure the fan is right above that, because that way we can put our ladder and we can access the fan, right? So there's a door over here, there's a sliding door. We want to enter the building. We want, just as we enter that, we want to have it just above that door, right? So does that make sense to you? Since they said that, I said, okay, that means that this is the typical arrangement. For every single bathroom, we're going to have the fan right next to the door, and we're going to have the hydraulics pipe on the opposite side. They're going to run and reticulate on the opposite side. So you can see here, that's what they've done. They've done it here. You have some pipe over there and you have the fan close to the door. So this way, now when the people are modeling in the system, the BIM modelers are doing their job, they're making sure that they keep their fans to one location, and like when the hydraulics looks at it, he knows, okay, I know for a fact that I have to run my pipe on this direction because the door is here. We talked about it in the meeting. And so 7 apartments can be coordinated like that with one conversation, right? So if you can actually understand this, you understand typical layouts, you understand the fans, how you need to access them, you actually have this knowledge and you gain this. This is why I'm saying you need to be exposed to the industry every single day, because you only learn these things and you develop these workflows and you develop, okay, for the last apartment building, this is how I did it. So now I know every single apartment building that I do, like where you have like a typical layout like this, I do a typical coordination of a student accommodation like building, and then I do a typical coordination of all the bathrooms, right? So, and honestly, there's going to be millions of other things that I develop over time as I work more and more as a BIM coordinator, and I get into like BIM management and project management, right? There's so many different things that I can learn, but you can see that this way people appreciate you more because you're saving them time and you're actually doing something which is fun. You're problem solving, you're trying to find better ways to do things. You're an innovator, right? And the most important thing is now you get to then you get to go to your boss and say, like, here are the things that I've done. This is like the value that I've provided. This is the time that I've saved. That's a ground for me to get promoted, right? And so that's where you need to get to in order to feel really, really happy about like your career and everything. So those are the 2 examples, the one with ACC and Navisworks, and then this is the one with like when I do coordination, right? If you don't understand this, don't stress too much. I have other videos going through it. I might link it up here, like the MEP services video. Or you can book a call down below and I will literally like show you this whole process. I'll go through projects that I've done. You'll learn all the MVP services. You'll get a million different examples of how this works, similar to this, so that this is the type of stuff that you learn when you work with me one-on-one, because I can only explain it so many times on a video. But if you're working with me, we're having weekly meetings, then I can give you so many examples like this as you go throughout like the 3-4 month period, that you will start to understand and see things the same way that I'm seeing things, right? So if you want to do that, just click the first link down below, have a chat with me. We can see if you have the proper background, and you're suitable to sort of work with me, and then we can go from there. But yeah, this is an example. If you can't really understand the services too much, or don't worry too much, but hopefully this conveys the message that I'm trying to give you, right? It makes sense that BIM coordination is the path to grow in your career, but why do people struggle to get into the coordination path and fall victim to the drafting death trap, right? I've seen so many people, right? And this is not just to do with skill set. This is to do with what you do on a day-to-day basis, right? I've seen so many people that are architects and engineers go down the traditional architectural role and get stuck for years and years. And there's one fundamental reason why this happens, and it's to do with leverage. And I sort of talked about it before, right? It's very simple. In order for you to get to your goal, if you define it and you reverse engineer it, you have to figure out the skills you need, right? And so then you have to figure out, what do I do on a day-to-day basis, or what is the environment which I need to be exposed to in order to actually acquire those skills? Because acquiring those skills is through an environment. It's not just through like straight away. You can't just do a course on Udemy, right? What happens to a lot of people is they went their whole life studying, going through the education system, going to university, getting a degree, and constantly learning and evolving. But as soon as they start working, they're not in an environment where they continuously learn, and that's due to the nature of the job and what they're doing, okay? Make sure you understood that. That's really important. You spend your whole life you had a very structured approach. You went to school, you went to university, you learned engineering or architecture or BIM modeling, or did some drafting course or something like that. There was such a structured curriculum where this year you're going to learn this year you're going to learn this, in the third year of uni you're going to learn this, in the fourth year you're going to learn this, then we call it like a bachelor's, then we call it a master's, then we have all these names. So it's so obvious to you the way for you to grow, because you understand with the terminology whether you're ahead, you're behind, or you're on track in order to actually grow. But what happens is, as soon as you start working in the real world, you lose any sense of accountability or understanding of whether you're on the right path. So it becomes sort of like a free-for-all, okay? So that's what I sort of mean is, like, when you're in university, let's just say that you fail your year 2 finals. You're like second year university, you fail it, and then now you have to repeat all the year 2 subjects, right? You would know, or let's just say you're in high school and then you stay back in year 11 twice. You would know that there is something wrong and you are not progressing the way you want to. And then you would motivate you, and then you would work harder, and then you would actually achieve the goal, right? You'd probably be 2 times motivated to be able to skip a level and get back to where your friends are, because you know, like, you didn't take it seriously, so you stayed back. There's a reference frame for you to understand where you are in comparison to other people. That's what I'm trying to say. In university, there's a structured approach for you to understand. By the end of this year, you have to understand these 4 units. We're going to give you an exam, and you're going to learn this, and you're going to answer the questions. And based on that, if you can get above a 60, then you pass, right? There's a structured approach for you to understand if you're on the right path for growth. You lose that as soon as you start working. And this is actually what gets people stuck in their jobs. Because who's going to tell you when you start to do BIM modeling or architecture that you've been in here for 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, when you could have been out of here in 2 years and you could have been doing a management position? Who's going to tell you that? No one's going to tell you that, because it is up to you, right? You could spend 5 years, you could spend 10 years, 15 years doing what you're doing right now, and then get into a management position, like my client Diego, who he was like a structural drafter for 15 years. And then when he started working with me, that's when he finally became a coordinator, manager, AI manager in like a different company, right? And so he was stuck as like a drafts person for like 15 years. And he told me, if someone had told him like 5 years into his career, like, hey man, you're going to be stuck here for the next 10 years, he would have 100% taken action way earlier, because he would have seen like, okay, like, I wouldn't be stuck in second year uni for 10 years straight, right? I would want to get into the next thing. And so I need to understand, how do I get into the next thing? And so that's like the mindset that you sort of need to understand, that in order to realize why you don't feel like growth. This is why fundamentally you don't feel like growth is a problem until it's too late. Everyone realizes that growth is needed, but they think, oh, I'll do it later, and it sort of creeps up on you, and you only realize it when you look back 6-7 years or 5 years in your career, and you realize maybe I should have done something 5 years ago. But you don't realize it during the path as you're going through the 5 years. You never realize that, because the way it works is you only feel this in regret. You don't feel this in proactiveness, because the way the psychology of the humans work, right? And so the problem is there's no one holding you accountable. So you can get stuck in the exact same position doing the exact same thing without learning. No one's going to say being a BIM modeler for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, like you had a potential to become a manager by now if you had taken a different path and taken it a bit more seriously, and you applied for this job and you got into that position as a BIM coordinator, you would have been a manager right now. But like you're not, you're still an architect, you're still a BIM modeler. No one's going to tell you that, because no one can tell you that, because there's no reference frame after you graduate to actually understand that. It becomes a free-for-all, right? And so the fundamental truth is you need to perceive growth and you need to perceive stagnation in order for you to constantly be taking steps towards a better future. If you lose track of the perception of growth and stagnation, that's when you don't know how to measure yourself, right? If you have first year, second year, third year, fourth year uni, and you can go from one to another, you're perceiving growth and stagnation, because you know that in 2023, if you're here, and in 2024, 2026, you're here, you've grown, you've not stagnated, right? But what happens is when you're a modeler for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, who's going to tell you that you could have switched over here into a management position and you would have done fine regardless, right? And you would have grown, you would have gotten paid more. Who's going to tell you that? No one's going to tell you that, because there's no way for you to perceive growth, because what happens is the scale gets destroyed. Someone takes a hammer and destroys the scale. So now you can no longer perceive if you're growing or not growing. You never know it. I hope you understand the point that I'm trying to make here, because it's just so profound. Like, you lose track of your ability to understand if you're even on the optimal path. Like, could you have taken steps 3 years ago and become a manager by now? Could you have taken steps 5 years ago and doubled your salary by now, right? Could your life for you and your family and everyone look completely different because you took a slightly different career trajectory 3 years into your career and you became a BIM coordinator, BIM manager, and now you're like you started your own company and you're making 7 times what you could have made. Like, we never know that. And so that's why it's so important to understand this as like the situation, so that you can actually take action towards your dream life, you move towards your vision, right? It becomes such a big multivariable issue because you're no longer dealing with fixed time and there's no template for how you should really go, right? So I pretty much explained all that. The fundamental thing that I need you to understand is through this question that I'm about to ask you, right? You spend years of your life investing in your education, going to university, in order for you to learn the skills and grow. This is the reason that you were able to consistently progress while you were at university and while you were at school. Now you're in a position where you are actually getting paid for the work that you do, right? So while you were in university, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, like you were paying money, like you were paying a lot of money to like become an architect, become a BIM modeler, like take all these courses, like you're paying all this money because like you wanted to get to the outcome that you wanted to, right? Like you really want to become an architect, you really want to get into the BIM industry, you really wanted to do these things, right? What happens now? You start working now, okay? So now you're working. How much money after you started working have you actually invested to develop your skill set to then get to your ultimate goal, which is like management, starting your own company? Most people will answer as 0. They've never invested in themselves. The only time they've ever invested in themselves is to get into the architectural position in the first place. And then after that, in order for them to get into the BIM management position, or like the position that really matters, which is them getting towards their dream life, their dream outcome, like everything, they've invested no money in order to develop the skills. And so do you see the logical fallacy here? Like, you did something, you invested in yourself in order for you to get to here, right? And now you're in a good situation because you're no longer paying money to learn skills. You're actually getting paid to be an architect, right? You're getting paid. That's good. But now you're getting paid, you're in a better financial situation. Why don't you ever spend money or invest in yourself to gain a skill set that's going to ultimately get you to the goal that you want? That's going to double your salary, triple your salary, get you to the ultimate goal you want to get into in life. And so this is the fallacy. Like, I realized this very early on, which is why I started to really invest in myself from a very, as soon as I started to understand this, from the first year that I started working, I started investing in so many different mentorships that it's what allowed me to get to where I am today. Is because I realized that what got me to the level that I'm at was investing in education, and what's going to get me to the next level is also investing in education. It's like similar to like the logic I said before, right? If you do the same thing, you get the same outcome, which is if you invested in yourself in the past and you got an outcome, you will invest in yourself in the future and you'll get a better outcome, right? Like it's so logical that people bring their emotions into it and they don't think logically, and then because of that, people struggle to grow, right? Why is it that you've never put $1,000 into your education over the last few years, even $1,000, right? When you're getting paid 50 times that on a yearly basis, whereas when you're getting paid nothing, right? When you're in university, you invested tens of thousands of dollars into your education to do all these courses and stuff, which eventually got you to the position where you're at right now. And now you're expecting growth when you're not taking action to invest in yourself, right? So it's fundamentally clear why you aren't growing and why you're stagnant if you look at it through this lens, right? This is just another lens to look at it through. The first lens you can look at it through is like your position is just like a position where you're on a boat, you're not in a speedboat, so the position doesn't allow you to develop the skills in order for you to get to the outcome, right? The second lens for you to look at it is, of course you're not developing the skills, because the only way you develop the skills in the first place is because you went to university and you actually invested in yourself to get the skills. Now you're in a situation where you have the skills and you're expecting the company to naturally give you more skills, whereas the company is paying you to work. So you're not going to be in a naturally growth-oriented role, right? You need to invest in yourself to put yourself into the momentum of being in a growth-oriented role, and then it will take action and grow on itself, right? All I want you to do is fundamentally understand the reason that you haven't been able to grow in your career or struggle in your career is because of like these two lenses that you can look at it, right? Because I can tell you a bunch of skills or I can tell you a bunch of things to learn, and I have a lot of that stuff on YouTube, on this channel. But if you don't understand fundamentally how your psychology works, why you've been stuck and why you haven't been able to achieve this change, right? Then how do you even take steps to fix something that are not even aware of, right? Carl Jung said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. Okay, I want to say that again. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. Okay? As soon as you understand the reason fundamentally why something is, the causes, it's very logical. Understand the causes, then you will be able to very logically understand the roadmap and see how you're going to get to where you want to get to. And it becomes a very logical ordeal. People bring emotions into it because they don't understand how to look at things logically, right? It's like similar to like an overweight person that goes to the gym on New Year's resolution. You know, every single overweight person that has the goal to lose weight on they have like a New Year's resolution. They want to lose weight and they last for like a week and a half. You know that because you know someone that's overweight is going to stay overweight, and you know that someone that's broke is going to stay broke. But you also know that someone that has a millionaire mindset, as soon as they lose all their money, can become a millionaire in a year or 2 or 3 years, right? But someone that's homeless, as soon as you give them $1 billion, they're going to blow all their money and they're going to be back on the streets, right? It's just the mindset that you develop which allows you to grow. And once you develop that growth-oriented mindset and you develop the invest in yourself, learn the skills, look at things logically, look at things through a growth-oriented lens, like everything that I sort of outlined in this video, if you resonate and you understand everything that I've talked about, it becomes very easy for you to start to grow because of this reason, right? So when I say mindset, I'm not just thinking about being positive because it's so fundamental. Everyone knows you have to be positive and whatever, right? But when I say understand your psychology, I mean understand the only reason you haven't been able to grow is because you haven't been taking this seriously and you haven't had the perspective from which to look at your situation. I'm offering you now the perspective in which to look at your situation and see things clearly. Once you see it through this paradigm, you'll be able to understand what you need to do in order for you to get to your goal, right? Okay, so I'm about to reveal to you pretty much the technical reason and the skills that you need, right? But I want you to promise me that you 100% understand the only reason that you'll be able to get to the next level is if you actually accept that you need to take action on developing skills, because that's what you've been doing your whole life, and that's the only thing that you've stopped doing. Like if we do this like with multivariable analysis, you've been developing skills your whole life, you stopped, therefore you're not going to grow. Okay, it's like really simple. So as long as you understand that and you have the humility to understand that, then you can put yourself on a path, right? Once you accept that, to okay, let's learn the skills now in order for me to increase the probability of me achieving the result that I want. Because when we talked about the skills, we talked about the goal, then we broke down the skills. It's a probabilities game, right? Like when you learn the skills each day, you'll put it in an environment where you learn those 3 skills. The probability of you succeeding increases and increases and increases, right? That's what we want. And so the reason that I believe in this so much is because I've seen examples like my client Diego. Within 30 days of him losing his job, he was able to transition into a BIM job, which was better than the job that he was doing before as a BIM. Actually, the job he was doing before was a structural draftsperson for 15 years. But then he became a BIM manager, AI manager in a really good company after he got made redundant. So he got made redundant, started working with me. We developed his skill set. We positioned him as like a very unique individual, which is what I do with everyone that works with me. We looked at his past experiences. We put that in a portfolio. I gave him all my practical knowledge. We also put that on the portfolio. He actually genuinely understood everything. So when he went to the interview, he had all this knowledge about BIM, coordination, management, as well as like this past experience. And that allowed him to get to the next level, right? And so he messaged me. This is just when he messaged me. He said another company emailed me to have a chat for like Revit specialist. It was like a CAD and BIM coordinator. It was like an AI focused role. And he eventually got the job, and then he said he got 2 job offers. He got that CAD BIM manager, like AI manager role, right? And then he also got another one as like a senior BIM technician as well, right? So he was stuck as a draftsperson for 15 years and came to me because he hated doing the same thing every single day. He wanted to make a really big change. He said that he wanted to do this ages ago, but he realized that his procrastination is what led him to being stuck and stagnant. And all I did was I just taught everything that I knew, right? I transferred my industry knowledge to his mind within 3 months, and then we packaged his current existing knowledge in a way that made him seem like an expert in the industry and in the market. This made it super enticing for companies to want to hire him as an expert. And the transformation was really quick, and to be honest, it was really simple. The only challenging part was the fact that it took him 15 years to realize that he needed to invest in his skill set and spend some time on his skill set and be positioned as a different person so that he was able to be perceived in a different way to get different results, right? Because if you do the same thing, you get the same results. If you do a different thing, you get perceived in a different way, you get better results. Imagine you've been going to the gym for some time and you've built up your strength to a certain level. Building up the strength was hard, but maintaining the strength was not hard because you're used to the weight now, right? But if you want to grow to the next level of strength, you have to put yourself in an uncomfortable position again where you're doing weights that challenge you, right? So you can do weights that challenge you, but then those weights eventually become weights that become easy for you, right? And then the challenging weights become easy. And then if you stay stuck doing those easy weights because it's comfortable every single day, you're actually not growing. You're just maintaining your physique. But what happens is when you eventually take the mental action, okay, I'm actually going to challenge myself over the next 3 months to increase the weights. You start increasing the weights, you challenge yourself, and then you start to grow with your physique and you start to make fitness gains, right? So it's the same way that it works. But the thing is, you can be going to the gym every single day, but you can not be challenging yourself. But the person that is challenging themselves and in a better environment, when the muscles are in a better environment, they actually grow. But if they're in an environment where the stimulus is not enough for them to gain new skills, they're not going to grow. And so this is the exact same way that it works. Is the sad part is either way you do the work. It's not like some guys are doing work, some guys not doing work. Either way, you go to the gym, but one guy becomes grows in their physique and gets the fitness gains, whereas the other guy stays stagnant, but they both spend the same amount of time, right? And like, why is that? It shouldn't work like that, but it does, because it's all to do with you get to a specific level, you always have to be learning the next skill set in order for you to go to the next level, right? Okay, so he posted this saying that he got 2 job offers. He actually accepted the one as a CAD design, like the BIM AI manager. He says that it feels unreal to be in a position where I can choose between 2 amazing opportunities, pushing me forward in my career. And then he gave me a shout out. the BIM Accelerator program. He said he was a game changer. He helped me level up my skills in a big way, not only in the BIM space, but as a business as well, because he wanted to do like some freelancing stuff. So he's been able to do that. I've been able to help him with that stuff as well. So he's making more money. I've been applying what I've learned ever since, from the technical side to the way that I think about BIM in a leadership context. It's made a huge difference. I can't recommend the program enough. It's really helped me shift from just being a worker drone to a leader and someone that has driven for success in my career goals. Thanks, Hesh. The win is as much as yours. So I just wanted to read that out in case you, because you're probably not going to pause the video, right? So if you just want to listen to it, that's me saying it. So this is the reason that the strategy works so well, right? Hopefully by now you understand why BIM coordination is a role that's so valuable for your career growth, why BIM modeling and architecture doesn't actually allow you to naturally grow, and why the only way out of it is for you to take action and learn the skills, because the nature of the job you're in right now pigeonholes you into your current situation without allowing you to gain momentum and velocity to take you to the next level. It's sort of like a snowball. A snowball is really hard to gain momentum and velocity at the start, but once you put it into motion, it actually starts compounding on itself and becoming so heavy that you can't control it anymore, right? It's like it compounds and compounds and compounds and compounds. But if you're trying to push the snowball up the hill, right, it's very difficult. It's not compounding on itself at all. Like you have to put a lot of force. But once you get up to the top of the hill, you can sort of give it a small push and it's going to start compounding on itself. So these are like the two phases. Like this is when you're doing like architecture and BIM modeling. And then when you get into like a BIM coordination, BIM management position, then you can start to let go of the snowball and it will start to accumulate on itself over and over and over again. And you'll start to develop the skills, because now it's like a growth oriented role, right? And that's what I talked about. If you stay stuck in the architectural and drafting trap, it's very hard for you to gain momentum because you're not naturally put in a situation where you can learn the skills that we talked about to naturally grow in your career. And so you can stay stuck there forever, but adding time and adding experience doesn't do anything because there's nothing to compound. So snow is actually there's no snow getting added to it. But if you get into BIM coordination, hopefully now you understand that BIM coordination is a role that allows you to grow, because the nature of the role itself is allows you to develop those 3 skills that we talked about on a day-to-day basis. And showing up to work, you actually gain the skills, which gives you the leverage over time and allows you to naturally grow and allows you to develop your skills. This is simply why some people naturally grow in their career and why some people don't. It's all about the opportunity vehicle they're in and whether that opportunity vehicle naturally accumulates snow or whether it just doesn't accumulate snow at all, right? So you want to be an opportunity vehicle that naturally accumulates all this snow. And so what I do with the people that I work with is I typically just transport them to the top of the mountain by giving them all the skills which they need in a very short period of time. Like the whole point of working with me is that you can get 5 years of industry knowledge in 3 months, so that it shoots your confidence up so high that it pretty much puts you at the top of that mountain. So all you have to do is just apply, get the job, and you will be in a natural growth-oriented role, right? But if I said this to you at the start, you wouldn't really understand what I mean by naturally growth-oriented role, which is why I had to give you that whole explanation for everything, right? This is one of my clients, Pearl, who's also doing really well right now. She said she came across my Instagram and also noticed a review from one of her university classmates. Arushi actually worked with me. She's now a BIM coordinator, but she did a BIM Masters. Even Pearl did a BIM Masters, but she said that there was a gap between the theoretical knowledge and the practical application. So she couldn't even get, like none of them could get a BIM coordination role doing the BIM Masters because they feel like they didn't learn anything. It was a bunch of theory that didn't actually make them feel like confident, right? After working with me, they gained a lot more confidence in the understanding of real world concepts. And she said that I explain things in a very simple, structured way that anyone can grasp. I focus on strong fundamentals and gradually takes you to an expert level. And the transition of knowledge is superb. The modules are well organized, systematic. She said a bunch of that. So the reason that I want to bring this out over here is just to tell you that you can actually make a big transformation in 3 months, right? These people did the BIM Masters and they couldn't get a job. Like they were applying, and they were doing all these other jobs in different industries, or they were doing jobs as CAD drafters after doing a BIM Masters. Like, why is that? It's because you don't actually have the real world BIM skill set. BIM coordination, BIM management isn't an entry level job. So it's not an entry level job. You can't You can't get an entry-level job by doing academic, right? You need to have practical skills to do a non-entry-level job. It defeats the purpose, right? If you learn academia and you can then get like entry-level job, which is like architecture, CAD drafting, something like that. But if you want to get into a management position, you can't go back to uni to learn something theoretical, where management, coordination, things on the cutting edge of technology is to do with your practical application, implementation of everything. That's how you're measured in your role. So that's why these people, Pearl, Arushi, that I worked with, and that have done the BIM Masters, when they work with me, they gain the practical application, the practical knowledge, which boosts their confidence and allows them to speak in the interviews like they actually know the genuine real world coordination experience, right? And so that's the most important thing, is for you to understand the genuine real world coordination experience, right? If you want to work with me in the BIM Accelerator program and you want to learn all the knowledge, the industry stuff, we will learn in a very condensed time period. I'll help you with your CV, your portfolio, communication skills, with your job interviews and all of that. Click the link down below, go book a call with me, and we can sort of have a chat and see if I can help you get to your goal, right? But I need to have a chat with you first to see if like you're sort of suitable to work with me and accept you into the program. Okay, so I want to tell you that fundamentally there are two reasons why you don't have the confidence and you get rejected in interviews, right? Even though you might understand a little bit about the coordination programs, you still feel like you can resolve real world problems because you still don't feel like you can resolve real world problems because you don't fully understand the MEP services and the construction process. Okay, so now I'm sort of like revealing to you like the program, the path, how everything actually works, right? So I'll give you a few examples. This is actually what I post a couple times a week on my Instagram. So make sure you follow me because I actually show you exactly what you need to learn and examples of BIM coordination things, which I do on a day-to-day basis. So you can learn from association with me, even if you don't want to work with me one-on-one, right? So go to my Instagram, follow me on Instagram. I post like all these BIM coordination stuff, these tests and stuff, like when I do BIM coordination, clash detection and stuff. So you can actually learn from association with me. And that's really going to help you because this is what actually allows you. This is my like whole BIM management blueprint, is like if you learn the practical skill set, you can go and speak confidently in the interviews, right? And so you need to be able to understand, like when you looked at like two examples, like one of this is clashing because you don't have space. Let me try and zoom this in a little bit more. Like when you look at this, you should be able to understand straight away that the hydraulics pipe is not clashing over here with the mechanical ductwork, but over here on this side, the hydraulics pipe is actually clashing with the mechanical ductwork because there's no place for our fan to connect to the flexible connection over here, right? And if you don't understand these things, then go follow me on Instagram because I actually with all the explanations, I actually go through everything so you can actually understand things over time. That is the fundamental reason, right? So there's two reasons why you don't have the confidence and you get rejected in interviews. Number one being that you don't actually feel confident because you don't understand the MEP services. So the solution for that is go follow me on Instagram and just watch my MEP services stories and videos, right? So you can get the real like understanding of everything, right? Or go learn the MEP services, YouTube it, take courses and like understand like all the MEP services back to front so you know how to coordinate things. So here's another example of a BIM coordinated decision that needed to be made, like clearance zones. This is something that I posted on my Instagram. There was like a clearance zone for this branch box, which is like a unit that supplies condensate and stuff to like all the mechanical systems like that. This is a fire pipe and it's going like behind the branch box and it's clashing with like the clearance zone. So you need to understand how the clearance zone impacts the branch box, how the fire pipe can't be in the back there because we need to be able to access it, how much we need to access it by, what's the distance, like all these different things I explained on my Instagram. So these are the examples of things that you don't understand, which is why you can't go to the interview and actually answer the questions really well. Because if you don't understand these things, then how are you going to be able to coordinate this on a real world project, right? Like if I'm interviewing someone for a BIM coordination job, I'm trying to see if they understand the MEP services and they can actually know how to coordinate the branch blocks clearance zones. They know what's the issue on site, what's the issue in the BIM model. Is a flex duct an issue? Is a flex duct So for example, this is a flex duct which is clashing with the hydraulics pipe, but it is an issue. But this one, the flex duct clashing with the hydraulics pipe on this side, is not an issue. Like, why is that? It's because the connection point between the mechanical fan and the flex duct is being crushed by the hydraulics. So there's no position for us to actually install. So then it goes to things like site installability. How do we install things on site? How does it all work? What's the tolerance we need, right? These things are the things you need to understand, which if you don't know these things, this is why you don't feel like you have the confidence when you go to the BIM coordination interviews, because you need this in order to actually feel confident, put this on your portfolio and actually achieve your goal, right? So to put it in real simple terms, you might be able to use the tool to run clash detection, but you have no idea how to interpret the clashes, and you might have no protocol on how to actually resolve the clash detection from start to finish, because you don't know how to assign who to assign the clashes to, right? If the clashes you see in the model need to be resolved, or they can be resolved on site, how do you know that, right? What are the clashes which are not showing up, like the clearance zones of units, which would be an issue on site? So like, for example, the clearance zones is not showing up over here as a clash, but you need to understand that that is a clash with your knowledge. That's practical knowledge, right? Over here, if you see clashes on the model that can be resolved on site, but you're creating them as clashes in the model, that's an issue, because now you're creating more work, right? So that's another issue where you don't have the practical skills. Another one, if you have no protocol and actually how to resolve the clash detection from start to finish, you're missing clashes, you're skipping things, and clashes are coming up on site because you don't see everything clearly. That's another problem with your practical skill set, right? You don't know how to interpret the clashes. That's what I'm trying to say. And so you might know how to use Navisworks or ACC or some of these programs, but if you don't know how to fundamentally interpret these clashes, like similar to the examples that I showed here and even like at the start of the video, if you don't know this, then there's no way that you can become a BIM coordinator. So this is one of the bottlenecks that prevents you from becoming a BIM coordinator, right? These are two very small examples, but essentially what you need to do is you need to understand services coordination, plant room coordination, reflected ceiling plan coordination, penetration coordination, and you need to understand, even with the sub disciplines, everything to do with mechanical, electrical, plumbing, hydraulics, and how we do reflected ceiling plan coordination for mechanical, how we do reflected ceiling plan coordination for plumbing, right? How we do plant room coordination for electrical, how we do plant room coordination for plumbing. Like, you need to understand these different things, right? So if you need to understand all the systems that in the plan room for a mechanical, electrical, hydraulic system, then you need to be able to understand the clearance zones that are needed and how to coordinate that, even if it's not going to be shown in the BIM coordination model, because clearances are something you need to do, but they're not shown, right? So if you don't actually know the practical skill set, how do you actually successfully coordinate? And so what I do to combat this is when I work with my clients, and I'll give you something that you can do right now, is I actually teach them all of these things in a very I'm getting tongue-tied because I've been speaking for so long. Methodical way, right? To do with methods, right? And we create a BIM coordination checklist, which I actually created in a video of mine. And one of my clients is going through this. Like, I have a video on my YouTube. If you watch it, how to coordinate any project, I'll put it up in the cards right now. But click this. I have sort of like a checklist of like everything that I do with coordination, so that they can resolve all these issues. Like, they're going to know how to interpret the clashes because they literally have like a checklist of what to look at. They know they're not going to miss anything because they also have a checklist, right? The clashes we see in the model need to be resolved. Some can be ignored, but then some have to be some can be ignored and done on site. Some have to be done in the model. So I actually put all of that into the checklist as well, right? Like, everything here is put into this checklist. So as you're going through like the BIM coordination model, like, you can look at it and you can be like, okay, I've done this. Okay, I've done this. Okay, I've done this. Okay, all right. So go watch that video, because this is fundamentally one of the things that's preventing you from developing the confidence you need, right? Essentially, you need to have a good understanding of the MEP services, the architectural and structural elements of a building, and also how to coordinate every single one of these in order, in terms of like the elements in the ceiling, elements in the plan room, the reflected ceiling plan, and everything, right? You need practical knowledge. You need a protocol. You need a checklist. You need to have real life examples to actually get the snowball rolling, because if you don't have a real life examples, you have no basis in which to communicate to someone and then tell them you know coordination, right? So like if you go to a BIM coordination interview, how do you, like, at least if you have this checklist and you have this made and you understand this, you can tell them, hey, here is like my typical BIM coordination checklist, which I use in order to do my clash detection, right? And you know, maybe you've watched so many videos, you understand the MEP services and you understand this BIM coordination checklist. You can then print this out, and when you go to a BIM coordination interview, you can say, this is exactly what I do, and everything is so logical, it's so structured, and it's practical. That's the main thing. And so that's going to increase your confidence, it's going to increase their confidence in your ability, right? And this is the main part that people really appreciate, is understanding this. Like, just so you know, like, this is for free on my YouTube. You can go and watch that. This is what my client said about it, right? He said, like, Saurabh started working with me recently, and he said he's always seeking continuous learning opportunities, and that's how I came across my program. And he appreciates how the content focuses on real industry experience rather than just like tool tutorials on how to use Navisworks, how to use ACC and stuff, right? This practical approach helps build both technical skills and a deeper understanding of the BIM workflows. And so that's like, he created, like, I actually went through with him and I created this this mechanical, electrical, like all this coordination checklist. So go watch that video. And once he created that checklist, he then posted this on my community, right? Because he really liked how practical everything was laid out. And that's what's allowing him to gain the confidence to then start. He's still working with me, but he's going to be able to start applying for BIM coordination roles very soon because of this reason, right? He's from the, and by the way, he's from the USA, because most of the people that I work with are from the US, Canada, the UK, Australia are the main places, right? And a few from Europe as well. So just to recap, number one reason that you feel like you're not confident is because you don't have the practical real world skill set. And the solution is go follow my Instagram and actually go and learn the MEP systems and understand all those different facets, plan room coordination services, penetration, and reflected ceiling plan, to do with mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and hydraulics. And then look at this pretty much checklist, and then go and follow my Instagram so you get immersed into this, right? That's going to solve that problem. All right. Number two reason why you feel like you're not confident in your technical ability is because you don't know which coordination program and workflow to implement according to the unique situation. So this is where like BIM management stuff comes into play. So if you're working in like an architectural company, you will have the BIM coordination workflow that has like version control that you have to set up. But if you're working in a construction company or in a construction phase of the project, you might not have this version control. So you might have to set up the BIM coordination workflow in a slightly different manner, right? And so if you don't understand that, don't worry. But this is the reason that you might not feel comfortable and like confident, and the reason that you might not be able to achieve your goal is because you need to know these situations. Like, go Google this if you want to, because this video is already really long. So like, go try and learn these things and do research by yourself. If you're setting up the ACC for a company, which is an architectural company, you need to set it up with something like called version control. So you need to set it up with this shared folder, which is going to allow people to not to work in like a live environment, but then also once in a while publish into like a shared environment. Then everyone links in from the shared folder, right? So you can control the versions like that. It's similar to like, if I have someone else working right now on this Google Doc, I can see it in like the live environment. But if I wanted to have version control, I would only allow people to edit this Google Doc when I finish working on it and I'm ready, right? So then I would send them a message and then they would get on it, right? But it would, for some method, it would prevent them from getting on when I'm working on it. So that's like similar to version control. So if you're working in like a construction company where you don't need version control, then you set it up in a completely different way and you create the federated model in a different way, right? Where you don't have the shared folder, and the federated model is now created through the working in progress folders, and it gets updated much quicker, right? And the way that you create clashes is different. So you can see, depending on the scenario, depending on the situation, the way that we even implement the BIM coordination workflow, right? And this is now to do with BIM management, because you're thinking about workflows and the best way to do it for a specific outcome. This changes. And so you need to be able to understand the different ways and the nuances. Okay, if you work for a BIM consultancy, a design phase, construction phase, general contractor, the way and according to the client's needs, if someone asks you, we want to set it up like this, you need to be able to know the different workflows, right? There's different workflows for even creating federated models. Like, I can create a federated model with individual working in progress Revit models, or I can create one by myself. So either they can, when they publish, it updates the model, or the second method is I can have access to the whole thing. When I publish, it automatically updates all the models at once, right? So there's two different ways. You can give other people more permission, or you can take more control of it. And so you need to understand how to set these different things up according to the situation, because sometimes, honestly, if you're working with a team that doesn't publish their models quite regularly and you have to keep following up, it's just better for you to set it up in a way that you can have control over it, so that when you publish, it just publishes their model for them, right? So that sort of strategy might take a little bit longer on the front end to set up that model in the first place, but it saves you time over the long run. So those are sort of like the calls that you make as a BIM coordinator, BIM manager, when you're actually doing this whole process, right? Okay. So like pretty much everything to do with like the BIM coordination workflows, because this is to do with the technical stuff, like how to integrate ACC with Navisworks and the ways to create the federated model within ACC itself, right? It's the difference between knowing the different parts of a car but not understanding how they come together. That's why you need a mechanic, because the mechanic understands how they come together and which parts work with each other and what can be replaced, what cannot be replaced, when you have to replace something according to the needs of the person. That's why when the mechanic tells you, hey, we need to replace this part in your car, you can ask him, can we wait until the next service? And then they'll be like, yeah, you probably can. Or they'll be like, no, I would definitely replace it because this pump's going to go out in the next like 5 kilometers, right? They know that because they're so in tune with how this pump integrates with the rest of the mechanical car and how everything works, right? And so that's like the fundamental reason is you need to be a mechanic of BIM coordination, if you know what I mean, right? You don't want to be like a person that just understands the individual components but doesn't know how the workflows integrate together. So the example I gave about, so similar to this, you have to understand how to use Navisworks, how to use the whole BIM workflow. How Navisworks integrates with the ACC, Open BIM and Closed BIM, and then is actually very hard for you to troubleshoot and lead a team if you don't actually know how to do all those things, right? And so the example which I gave above is about having version control and not having version control. Is one of the most fundamental examples. There's millions of other examples and nuances. You actually have to do a project from start to finish to be able to understand how to actually like the different nuances and different ways to do it. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to learn it. This is why I say you need the practical technical skills, like practical skills in terms of knowing the MVP services, but then also the practical skills in terms of like, now when you set up a model, you can set it up in a good way. Okay, there's Open BIM, there's Closed BIM workflows, there's different model coordination softwares which can be used for specific instances. There's multiple different ways to set up the federated model. There's just millions of different things. And so there's a whole ecosystem which you have to be able to handle well. When you think of a tech support guy, you don't think of someone that just knows how to troubleshoot Android phones. You think of someone that knows how to troubleshoot Android, Apple, Windows computers, Mac computers, servers, and even operating systems that people don't usually use, like Linux, right? That's the type of person that becomes a world-class IT support guy. Anyone can just get good at one thing, but to be able to integrate them together is the hard part, because it requires you to be in so many different scenarios, so many different examples, and be exposed to so many different situations that you know exactly what to do when the time comes, right? The only reason someone knows how to troubleshoot Android phones, Apple, Windows, Mac, Linux is because they've been in the situation of all these different things and they know how they integrate with each other, right? This is the reason why I teach you every single example and scenario that you could possibly encounter and take you through the whole journey and whole process so that you're 100% confident that you know every single BIM workflow that can be used in the industry. That's why I tell you, when I say plant room coordination, services coordination, penetration coordination, reflected ceiling plan coordination, go learn those 4 things. Learn about mechanical, electrical, plumbing, hydraulics. Learn about Open BIM, Closed BIM, right? Learn about like every single thing that I'm saying in this video. Take notes, go and learn all those things, and you'll finally converge into a proper understanding of like the bit of BIM and everything. Once you learn the practical skills, you learn the practical workflows, and you're only left with one more thing. If you can showcase that you actually know those skills, you'll be able to get a job. So once you learn the practical skills, right? You see it in a practical way, the technical skills. Then you learn the technical skills, like you know how to use the program. Then the last thing to do is showcase that you actually know the first 2 things, right? Because if you can't market yourself, you'll never get a job. Someone that knows how to market themselves really good, but has less skills than you, will have a perceived higher skill set, right? It's all about perception. So the industry is going to perceive them as someone that can provide more value just because they marketed themselves better, but you might have better skills, but your perception is lower because you have not marketed in a way. So your perceived value is lower, whereas your absolute value might be higher, right? So you can have someone that has a good skill set but is really bad at marketing themselves, someone that has a mediocre skill set, really good at marketing themselves, and you have a perceived value, right? The perceived value is lower of this guy that doesn't know how to market themselves, but the absolute value is higher because in real world, in like the objective world, right, they actually can do better things. But the guy that has the absolute value lower might have the perceived values higher just because he's good at communicating and creating a portfolio and whatever, right? And so you need to know how to properly communicate to the market that you're an expert at the above two things that I talked about, and being able to grow in your career is a skill in marketing. You have to know how to market yourself and how you can't market yourself. The person that has less skills than you, but they can market themselves better, will actually grow quicker just because they can communicate better. So the way that we combat that and the way that you're going to combat that is you're going to create a portfolio which is so good that it's going to be so logical for people that when they look at your profile, that you have these skills, right? So this is like an example of a portfolio of one of my clients. Let me zoom in on here so you can actually see it. So she's showing that she knows how to set up Celebri. She's showing that she knows how to set up ACC and BIM 360, right? So she's showing that there's a model over here. These are the different clashes. These are the different issues that she's creating for quality assurance. She's doing a clash detection over here. She's integrating this thing called BIM Track and Revit. So she's integrating BIM Track with Revit, with Celebri, with ACC. So you can see this whole ecosystem coming together. And someone that's really good at, like, as a BIM manager or a BIM coordinator, I can look at this and really understand that this person knows how to use all these workflows together because you're showcasing this on the portfolio, right? Again, like you're showcasing different clashes, the way that you've done the clashes, you're showcasing, you know, the coordination hierarchy, and all these different things. Now you're showcasing Navisworks so that you have like the clash detection matrix. You're showcasing that you have like a Navisworks file that is integrating with ACC. You're creating clashes on ACC. And then you also create a bunch of all these different clashes and examples with solutions. So like looking at this, I can straight away see, okay, this person knows Celebri, this person knows Navisworks, this person has a practical understanding because they're saying here, okay, move the duct, move the fire pipe, move the hydraulics pipe when it's clashing with the structural column. Like you're seeing that they actually know all these different things and there's a coordination hierarchy over here. It becomes so logical to someone that a person that has this skill set will be able to come into their company and start to provide value straight away from day one, right? And so that's what you need to get to, is you need to find a way to market your skills that you've learned, learn the technical skills, learn the practical skills, actually be immersed in this whole process for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, create a portfolio that looks like this and start applying. And what that's going to do is now you've just slowly increased your probability of achieving your goal because now you have such a good CV, such a good profile that companies will start to look at you as an expert. They'll hire you, then you'll get into that position where you are now developing those 3 skills on a day-to-day basis, right? Because remember, that's our final goal. And this is just the day-to-day methodology that I'm teaching you to get to there, okay? Here's the strategy, the BIM Career Transition Blueprint. It's very simple. Like I'm going to recap everything right now, right? First, you need to understand where you want to go to. You need to understand BIM management positions, BIM project management, or starting your own companies where you want to go to. Then you need to understand what skills you require. So we talked about the communication, deep understanding of the construction process, the advanced technical problem solving abilities. That is the skill that we needed to get to here, right? Is it like so simple? These skills is going to get you here, right? How do we get these skills? Okay, now we think, what do we do on a day-to-day basis? Third, you need to understand why your current path won't get you there. Or if you're on a good path, you need to understand why it will get you there, right? So you know to stick to it. So if you're a BIM modeler, architect, or engineer, you're doing schedules and drafting, you're not exposed to the construction process and you're not solving complex problems because you never lead any meetings. So you're in sort of like a trap because you never learn these skills, right? So if you never learn these skills, you're never going to get from cause and effect. If you don't go from here to here, you can't go from here to here. So that's impossible, right? Okay, so you need to understand the solution, which is BIM coordination. If you lead coordination meetings, you develop your communication. Okay. If you solve clashes and technical issues, you build problem-solving expertise. If you're immersed in the whole construction process, from the examples that I showed you above, you gain comprehensive knowledge. And if you develop cutting-edge workflows, you stay in high demand, right? So you can see that these 4 things are actually, what is it doing? It's getting you to develop those skills, and by logic, you will then get to here, right? So where you're currently at right now, logically, you won't get to where you want to get to. If you develop the skills for BIM coordination, you will logically get to where you want to get to. It's like so logical, right? And so finally, you need to understand there's 3 barriers to entry. The reason that like you don't feel confident in your ability to achieve this goal, even though like I say this goal and it makes sense to you, there's only 3 reasons why you feel no confidence, right? Because if you felt confident, right, you would work and work and work and work and you'd finally get a job. But the reason you don't feel confident is because you lack the practical MEP services knowledge. You're missing the technical workflow expertise, right? It's because you don't know which programs and processes to use, and you don't know how to market yourself. So you're not communicating your values to employers, and you're not showcasing that you're a skilled individual. So these 3 are the things that's keeping you stuck right now. So on a very, very strategic level, what we do is we learn these things first. If we focus on doing these 3 things for the next 3 to 6 months, then naturally you can then apply for a BIM coordination position in the 3 to 6 months after that, and you can get into a position there where then you will naturally go into where you want to get to, right? So from a very, very, like we looked at this on a really, really long timeline. Like we looked at the vision, the skills, why you're not going to get there, how you can get there. And once we define that we need to get there through BIM coordination, now the question becomes, what do we do on a day-to-day basis as on the very micro level in order to get there, right? And so now, this is what we learn on a day-to-day basis. We learn MEP services, we learn the different workflows, and we learn how to market ourselves and create a portfolio. And if you focus on this to 3 to 6 months, then the rest is natural cause and effect, which then gets you to the next goal, right? So the blueprint is so simple. Current role, from that, you just start learning your practical skills. After you learn the practical skills, you master the technical workflows. After you have those 2 things, now you have the confidence. So then you market yourself. So then you have a really, really good confidence and you stick to that, and then you become a BIM coordinator. From the BIM coordinator position, you then become a BIM manager, and then you grow naturally in your career. You can start your own company, you can become a project manager, you can do anything that you want, right? Everything that you want in life is on the other side of BIM coordination. And the reason you can't get into BIM coordination is because you've never really invested in your growth. So you don't have the skills, and your current role is stifling you. And so that's all that needs to happen, right? If everything that I said resonates with you and you want to work with me personally so that we can get you from your current situation into like a BIM coordination and management, I want you to book a call with me down below to have a chat with me. Just so you know, I work with around 18 people at once in order to transfer all my industry knowledge into their minds over the span of 3 months. And because of this like one-on-one interaction is why I have a call with you in the first place, because I want to make sure that you're someone that is like a good fit to work with me. I enjoy working with you. You have the growth mindset. You want to do this. You're motivated to learn this stuff. And you're going to stay on this path, and then I want to see you get the result. So I'm going to work with you for you to get the result, right? And so it's a hands-on mentorship program with the intention of actually helping you to get to your goal rather than just teaching you some surface level theoretical information. Pretty much everything we talked about in this video. And hopefully you understand I'm a very logical person. So if everything makes sense to you in this video, then it will definitely make sense to you when we start working together, right? And the whole point is to increase your confidence so that you can, and we'll figure out exactly what's causing your bottleneck right now, what skills you're missing, what's the holes in your knowledge. Maybe you have a very strong skill set and you have some strong drafting experience, but there's a few tweaks that we need to make in order to get you to management, right? And so we need to analyze that and get you on the right path. Because of this reason, I have a few questions to ask you to discuss about your expertise and career goals before seeing if working with me is a good fit for both of us. So click the link down below, select a time, have a chat with me, and I'll speak to you soon. One more thing, honestly, if you've made it this far into the video and you feel like this is the right step to take, then take it now, right? Not like in 2 hours, not like after you watch the next video, like do it right now. I'll tell you why. Because the way motivation works, because I really like to understand like psychology and the way people become stuck and stagnant, is there's only a small window which is opened up when you get into a certain state, and I call it the critical action taking window, right? When an alcoholic, right, I'm not comparing you to an alcoholic, but I'm just giving you I'm trying to give as many examples as possible so you understand. When an alcoholic gets so hungover one day that they decide that they need to quit, that split second when they make the decision, okay, I want to quit, is when they have to search for the program in order for them to take action. Once they take action, the program itself will keep them accountable to the goal that they had, whether they like it or not. So they will eventually get to their dream life. But that alcoholic, if they waited even a matter of hours, they might have lost that motivation and they may be back into that comfortable feeling of that repetitive drinking and everything, right? So it's sort of like this, like you might have this like timeline, and you might get a motivation, like this is like a really bad timeline, like this is like an alcoholic's timeline. You might get a motivation over here in order to take a path in a different trajectory. But if you just skip that motivation over here, that motivational moment, you'll just continue down this path to when you will get that next motivational moment, which will get you to the path, right? And the thing is, this period over here where you didn't experience that motivational, insightful like feeling of like, oh, I'm inspired to take action, I'm motivated, that is a complete waste of time because you don't even want to take action, right? So when you want to take action is when you have to put the system in place to slightly change your trajectory. It's sort of like that, the plane, like if you move a plane 1 degree off course for like 5-6 hours, you'll end up in a completely different city. So it all starts with that one small shift, right? When you feel like you need to make that shift, take action now. Like don't take action in the next 3 minutes, 3 hours, 3 days, like right now. And I know that like, even when I get on coaching calls, I know when someone is about to like really, really learn really quickly is when they tell me, for example, like, oh, I'm going to create the portfolio like right now. When they say like tomorrow, I know like they're not going to do it. But if they say like, I'm going to create the portfolio and send it to you like right now, and I'll send it to you like after that, that's when I know they're genuinely going to do it. And so the reason I say that is don't sabotage yourself, right? If you really think in a similar way to the other people that I've worked with, the way that I've explained in this video, I try to make it as logical with cause and effect as possible, giving different examples for a reason. And honestly, if you've watched like 1 hour and 45 minutes, like you really want to grow, right? This is something you really want to do. So now is honestly the best time for you to actually take action and do this, because otherwise you'll just keep sabotaging yourself. So click the link down below, book a call with me, we'll have a chat. I'll see if I can even help you, see like your past experience, and then we'll help you get to your goal, right? I'll see you on the call soon.